Whenever you're ready. Thank you. Good morning, everybody. If everybody would please turn off their cell phones if you just happen to have them on. Didn't have to say that when I was in school. So. Okay. So good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Eric's Club 27th Distinguished Alumni Series. My name is Marty Breverman, and I'm a 1974. Wow. Graduated of the Hilton School of Hotel Restaurant Management and President Chairman of the Eric's Club. Eric's Club consists of a group of distinguished alumni that have been proven leaders of the industry, and we have quite a few of them sitting right here today. The purpose of the club is to promote the mission of the college by building a legacy of students, inspiration, and alumni connectivity, as well as providing a network of support and resources to the Hilton College. Eric's Club was founded in 1989 by Dr. Clinton Rappel, who is also here today. There he is. And we have, as you know, we have many other distinguished alumni that have spoken and part of Eric's Club here today. Today we're here to recognize and celebrate the outstanding career of one of our distinguished our alumni of the Hilton College, Richard Weil. It's right here. I'd like to congratulate him on all of his accomplishments and introduce our past distinguished alumni, Al Gallo, to come up and talk a little bit about Richard. Al?
Thank you, Marty, alumni, dean, and faculty and students. And it's my privilege today to introduce to you Richard Weil, class of 78. And we had Marty, class of 74, and I'm class of 82. And I know for a lot of you that's, you're not even born then, but we're glad you're here. At any rate, Richard Weil is a senior consultant for National Restaurant Consultants in Golden, Colorado, has been part of the food service and hospitality industry for 6 decades, and I questioned him on that. I said, you don't look like you've been around for 6 decades. But he started as a youngster, I think he said at the age of about 13, and he'll tell you a little bit about that in a minute. NRC is a national and international food service and hospitality industry consulting firm that specializes in opening restaurants as well as working with restaurant concepts that need adjustment. He's kind of like the Hell's Kitchen guy. He consults now. If you have trouble with your restaurant, he goes in and helps you get things fixed. Richard has been involved in opening over 275 restaurants in his career, and that's a pretty amazing accomplishment there. As a child, he was exposed to the industry through his parents' food service distribution company in Denver. Prior to joining NRC, Richard served as the president and COO of Nick and Willie's franchise company. Under his leadership, Nick and Willie's, a small regional pizza chain, grew from 11 stores to more than 130 locations and successfully went public in 2009. Aside from Nick and Willie's, Richard has worked with a number of other franchising concepts as adjunct, including Quiznos, Muva Burgers and Fries, and Figaro's Pizza, and has served as operating company president for 3 different food distribution companies. He also served as senior vice president of sales and marketing for Multi Foods Distribution Company, where he managed a team of more than 750 employees that generated in excess of $2.2 billion in sales annually. An active advocate of the food service and hospitality industry, Richard is an accomplished public speaker and has received dozens of awards and honors, including admittance into the Oklahoma State University Hall of Fame for Hotel and Restaurant Administration, and a Leadership in Food Service Award recognized by the U.S. Army, Navy, Marines, and Coast Guard. Richard served as chairman of the board of the Colorado Restaurant Association from 2004 to 2005, and the International Food Service Executive Association from '96 to '98. He also served on the board of directors of the Albuquerque Convention and Visitors Bureau in Albuquerque, the Albuquerque Aquarium, and the New Mexico and California State Restaurant Associations. Richard and his wife of 34 years, Mary Ann, reside in Denver, but spend most of their time at their second home in Telluride, Colorado. They have 3 grown children, Louis, Christopher, and Melissa, 2 daughters-in-law, Rachel and Megan, 1 son-in-law, Peter, and 2 grandchildren, and as he shared with me last night, 2 more on the way, 1 in about 2 weeks from now. And with that, I would like to introduce our speaker, and we're all looking forward to hear Richard Weil. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Well, let's see. It is on. Good timing. Anyway, thank you all. It's absolutely my pleasure and privilege and honor to be here today. It was 40 years ago that this only 17-year-old went to college and turned 18 literally about 10 days after the fall semester 40 years ago. So it's pretty great for me to even be here before you. It's pretty overwhelming to be here in this beautiful new room and seeing 6 incredible faces staring at me from the pictures. And I want to tell you, during my presentation here, I'm going to talk a little bit about every single person there, because I'm very fortunate, as many other my peers here with Eric's Club, to have known every one of those individuals. And so it's pretty intimidating, if you would, to see some of those faces staring at you. And of course, to have 3 of them here right in front of me is just grand, and it's wonderful. So thank you for allowing me to take the time to talk to you a little bit about something that was great. I was here for the 50th anniversary of U of H. Was a Gourmet Night tribute in 1977. And the coach was the faculty advisor, and I was very fortunate to be on that senior committee. And I thought it would be fitting to just to try and start with that old logo, if you would, and talk a little about that old logo, and that's me. I was the Gourmet Night general manager in 1978. And that's a picture of a thinner, hairier, and look at that tie, if you would. That's an old picture, and I don't remember exactly where that came from, but it's kind of fun to see it. And that's a little bit more recent. You'll see a few pictures. This is probably one of my proudest moments. That was at my daughter's wedding 2 years ago, and as just noted a few minutes ago, she's going to be due with her first here in the next 2 weeks, and subsequently we're very proud of that. But that's really kind of the thought process here. My start, Coach, that was a picture you took years ago. And I want to kind of dedicate this presentation here a little bit to my parents, Debbie and Bob Weil, who were food service industry distribution pioneers. And clearly they were. And they started in 1951 in the food service distribution business. My father coming out of often the greatest generations, of course, World War II. And I really wanted to make sure that I got an opportunity to mention that, because my parents, food service industry entrepreneurs, really were an incredible influence on me. And it's without that root that I don't think I would have taken into this industry perhaps as strong as I have. And I suspect a lot of you, my first job was as a dishwasher. I was 13. Now, in those days, you could do it in 13. Today, it's about 14. But we had industry friends, because of my parents' contacts, that allowed me to work at a restaurant in Denver. And I'm actually a 5th generation born Coloradan. And my children are 6 and my grandchildren are 7th, which is fairly amazing when you consider that goes back to pre-Colorado being admitted into the Union in 1876. Our family goes back into the 1860s into Colorado, so truly a pioneer there too. But I knew that was not something I wanted to do for life. I suspect a few of you have washed dishes either in a restaurant, correct? I mean, how many of us have not been in the dish pit? If you haven't been in the dish pit, I absolutely going to tell you, you need to. And that not because you want to necessarily demean yourself, because it's not a demeaning job. It's a job that is absolutely critical, like housekeeping is to the hotel industry. Washing dishes is similar component. And it teaches you something about yourself and perseverance. And right then and there, I knew it was like 2 days in football. You knew that you either were going to survive it and get through it and understand it and appreciate it. And today, I can tell you, I'm going to get into this a little bit, but I'm currently a chief operating officer in my senior consulting work. We have a new client that we just started engaging with a few weeks ago in a different capacity. I'm an acting COO of a $12 million food service operation in Denver called Sushi Den. And it's a very, very, very busy place. We do 1,300 covers on a Saturday night. I absolutely go into that dish pit, and we're going to talk about howdy rounds in a minute, but I make bloody sure I see those folks in the dish pit, and I say good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and I always, when I leave, even if it's 12:30, and they're up to their ankles in this, I make sure that I go in there and I thank each one of them. Now, most of the time I have to do it in 4 languages, but I thank them. I thank them. But it's really something about that. And then I started cooking, short order cooking. It was great. I learned a lot about being a short order cook. That's organizational skills. That was the original definition of multitasking. Has anybody ever worked on a line as a short order cook? You understand what I'm saying. It's absolutely the original definition of multitasking, because I learned a ton figuring that out. And it was a blast, and it was something that required quick hands, soft hands, the right touch, because you didn't want anything going out sloppy. And so that was another component. Well, let's see if we're going to make that work. Double click. Then I worked here in Houston. When I came here in Houston, I was able to work at some really fun hotels. At the time, it looked like I was moving in that hotel side. And I worked at the Ramada just right off the Gulf Freeway, which is long gone. I worked at the Whitehall, and then I worked at one of the greatest places I ever got to work in was the Shamrock Hilton here in Houston. And I would fairly say that most of you never had the opportunity to see it, because it was a grand dame, beautiful property. If it had survived 10 more years, it'd still be here today, in my opinion. I think it would have stayed standing. It was a classic hotel built at the same time and era as the Palmer House in Chicago. A classic kitchen with dungeons and alleyways and hallways, and it was incredible to see a classical kitchen in action. What a thrill, I think, back into the 70s of having the opportunity to work in and around that property. I'm not going to go into the ultra stories, but I ended up being a bar back out at the pool at the Shamrock Hilton as well, not just in the food service side. So it was a lot of fun. We had a great time. There's my start. And then I worked for Aramark. That was the other thing. After school, after I was graduating, I was fortunate enough to stay on here at the hotel and stayed here for about a year and working for Aramark. Wonderful systems and controls. Between learning at Hilton and learning at Aramark, it gave me discipline to understand that it was not just about management and leadership, but you've got to understand numbers. Numbers never lie. Steve, are you over here? Numbers never lie. We know that. They never lie. I mean, it's a fact. For those of you that look at a P&L and think it's just like it's the devil or a werewolf looking at you, there's a reason why we take accounting and systems and controls. Because you have to have a working knowledge of those things. Sure, you can have accounting people, but if you are afraid of that P&L or that cash flow or that balance sheet, which I suspect a lot of you have misunderstandings of a balance sheet. It's the hardest thing to kind of understand why that balance sheet's important. It's absolutely an embarrassment to me when I go out in the field and I run across entrepreneurs that run their business off of their bank statement. And those are the ones that unfortunately fall victim to our industry, because we've got to understand our numbers. And there it was. The Moody Towers, the original school of hotel restaurant management. And yes, I was here when we moved from the School of Hotel Restaurant Management. And when I graduated in the spring of '78 is when we became the Conrad Hilton College of Hotel Restaurant Management. And that was quite a fun event. And we did have a big celebration, didn't we, Dr. Rappole? I remember that really clearly. As a student, of course. Now, in those days, in the state of Texas, and after the Vietnam War, we were all old enough at 18 years of age in the state of Texas to be called adults and be able to enjoy the privileges of being an adult. So therefore, we were able to participate in beverage management courses and other events. But there it was, 1978, spring of '74 and beyond. We talked a little bit about that. There we come on. One more? Maybe not. There we go. I got to come to Houston at 17 to meet the dean, and the dean is over there on the far left. We're having good, there he is. Dean Taylor. You know, what can I say? He's certainly here. He's always going to be here. The dean is what we referred to him as, the dean. And clearly, as the words on his plaque are absolutely accurate, it was a blast to get into and around him. Not always. Being called into the dean's office was always a mystery because he played his cards close. You did not know exactly what was going to come out of those meetings. But being a Gourmet Night general manager, I had accessibility to the dean. But he was quite a gentleman, and fortunately Dr. Keister, who was at University of Denver, which is where I'm from, knew my parents. I did not want to go to college in Denver, which was less than 6 miles from my house. And I decided I wanted to go out of state and tapped on the door at Michigan State and Washington State, Oklahoma State, and Cornell, and decided I really wanted to go someplace warm. And Michigan State kind of went out of the way early, and Washington State, it wasn't where it is today. There was no UNLV at the time, really, of any distinguished, no Central Florida. So Dr. Keister knew the dean. And so I came down here. And then I was admitted. I came here when I was 17, as I said. I took the intro class from clearly one of the greatest legends in our industry, I consider. We called him Dean Greenaway because he was the associate dean. And I had the pleasure of sitting in 180 for 2 intro classes to listen to a legend talk and tell stories. Now, I don't know, is anybody here in the intro class, taking the intro class right now? Wow. So that's a good thing that I have a whole new presentation tomorrow. So tomorrow, I'm going to be at the intro class. Tomorrow, you're going to get good stories. You're going to get stories about managing and things in my career. So I'm really going to mix it up here. So you're not going to get the same presentation. That's good. But the intro class with Don Greenaway was terrific, and I'm going to not emulate him, but I am going to tell some good stories. And if you were ever in that class, it was story time. And if you took notes during the class, it was never on the test, so it didn't help you. And there he is. What a great person and a true inspiration. All right, so we're moving. A memory of a lifetime, however, 40 years ago, I don't know how many of us were here for that day, we actually had the one and only meeting with all the Hiltons in the fall of '74. And I think that was even before you were here, Coach, in the fall of '74, but Dr. Rappole was here. I was a freshman, a snotty-nosed, 18-year-old, pimply freshman. And, you know, we've all seen this. If you have not read that book, do it. I believe as Conrad N. Hilton College of Hotel Restaurant Management programmed participants, enrollees, you should read this book. It's entertaining, it's long, some a little boring, but it's a great book. It's a good read. I wholeheartedly get to have you an opportunity to read this. That man's life is fascinating. Of course, that's Conrad Hilton, Baron, and of course, Eric. And it was a pleasure. It was a thrill. I can remember thinking, wow, this is pretty amazing. What's the next 4 years going to bring? And it was fun. Got an opportunity to do that. Other than my parents, who I'm really dedicating this presentation to. My next dedication is personal and professional being who's been such a profound influence on me. And that's a gentleman sitting in the front row over here who I love dearly. And this is for you, Coach. And if you haven't had a chance to speak to this gentleman, if he's put 4 people on his Mount Rushmore, but honestly, he's over Mount Rushmore in my eyes. You know, there's so many things. My management teachings really came from this university. And getting an opportunity to really know all 6 of those people back there, they've all had a really good influence on me and my management teachings. The coach gave me some things. Look at me, smile at me, talk to me, thank me. I teach that in every consulting role that I go in when we talk about hospitality management. Look at me, smile at me, talk to me, thank me. That's all they want. I don't care if you're on the front desk. I don't care if you're in the restaurant. Even the back of the house, that's what I do with those dishwashers. I go around every morning with the howdy rounds. We talked about that. You can't believe how few people do that. It's non-existent. We're a hospitality industry, and I can tell you that is absolutely important. We're still a people industry. I know that you all are much more tech savvy than we are, but we're still a human presentation. Yesterday, how human of a presentation, for those of you who were in the club management presentation by Alan, how human was that presentation? I don't know, did anybody get to see that yesterday? That was human. That was just a human presentation. But look at me, smile at me, talk to me, thank me. This was the master who invented the gross profit theory of menu pricing. And whether it be in the hotel side, club management, certainly food service operations, it's absolutely critical that we understand, again, these dollars and these numbers never lie. And it's used absolutely almost on every single client that I touch. Coaching the conscious competent. Coaching the conscious competent. What does that mean? It means, are you there? Are you absolutely playing today? Do you have a clue what's going on? Do you have any idea that you've got 700 people, 300 people, 30 people, whatever, that are depending upon you? And you can see it. Some people call it the deer in the headlights. If you've got the deer in the headlights, which we call the unconscious incompetent, get them out of your organization. Charles, my dear friend Charles Dorn here, had an experience 2 nights ago, or no, 2 weeks ago, over here at Frenchie's. Clearly, even though it's Frenchie's, it doesn't matter. Even though it's 11 or 12 at night, you got to get the unconscious competent who has absolutely no clue what's going on, should never have been hired, and shame on us as owners and managers for hiring that person to begin with. I love this one. I always remember watching The Weak Side. Your most vulnerable place in your organization can be when things are going right. If you've ever been part of a victorious, great evening, and you're on a roll and things are good, and the economy's going pretty well right now, right? It's much better than it was in 08, 09. And so we tend to allow volume to cure some of our problems. The weak side to me is what's going on right now in a healthy economy. Because we watch it a whole heck of a lot more when we're stressed out in 08, 09. Some of us remember other recessions. Some might remember a depression. But the fact of the matter is, when things are going great, is sometimes you better watch the weak side, because that's when your competition is going to come up and bite you in the rear. Currently, as I said, I'm a COO, interim COO for this very high volume restaurant in Denver. The owner doesn't need a consultant. They are ranked number 4 in the Denver market as one of the 4 best restaurants in Denver. Now you'd say, why the heck do they need me to come in there to do whatever I'm doing? Because he wants to get back to number 2. He was number 2 for a long time. 30-year restaurant in the top 5. That's pretty impressive to sustain that. That's pretty darn good. The fact of the matter is he's recognizing things are going right, and watch the weak side, which can also be your back of the house. It could be your bar back. It could be a lot of things. Well, this was the classic. I have to do that. Now, he used to be able to do it a lot stronger until that damn hip got to him. But the fact of the matter is, I do that with managers and owners to really emphasize. The test is when you open the door. There's an explanation that we developed at Nick and Willie's when I had the Nick and Willie's franchise system. We call that, are we ready for revenue? Are we ready for revenue? Everybody got that. It was a great phrase. The best answers come from your franchisees. It came out of a franchisee in Rochester, Minnesota. And Bob Plengy was his name, and this guy worked for Pizza Hut for 20 some odd years, became a franchisee, an old farm boy from Minnesota, raised corn. Popeye arms, because he was used to rolling out the dough every day, and he wouldn't use anything but his big Popeye arms, and he'd do two a day, two at a time. And we call it ready for revenue. And that's the thing that I urge you, whether you're hotel, club, or whatever, do we have our best game on? Do you have a mirror in the back of the house? Little bitty things, to me, is what I've learned over the years. Are we ready for revenue? Do we look pressed and ready to greet people? Are the restrooms where they want? Do we look like we're here for our family of customers? Those are the kinds of things that I call Dr. Apple. See, it was in the 70s we had Repulse Controls. It wasn't just the sanitation. And quite honestly, I learned a ton from Dr. Rappold on the controlling side. It was an absolute influence on me in recognizing how important food cost and beverage cost controls were. And I want to thank him because he's kept up with me over the years. Again, another person who's had a profound influence on me. Great picture. You can have that one if you want it. We won't go into that. But I think I was in his class. It was my junior year, I'm pretty sure of that. I think it was a 300 level course. Sounds right? Probably. And I was dating a fellow HRM person here, and anyway, we'll just leave it at that, our little secret. One of his greatest shades of reds. But he has certainly been a huge influence on this university, this college, this program. You know, if you know any of his history from Cornell and Colgate, you know he played football at Colgate. Most people don't know that, but I do. And those of us that know him, he's a competitor, he's smart, and he has been a great influence on me as well. So thank you, Dr. Apple. Well, my true convictions to managing and winning, and I will tell you, it is about winning every night or every shift. You have to win. You have to win, and you have to be able to satisfy, please, etc. And how many of you gone out to restaurants and you knew they just weren't on point? It wasn't a perfect night. And you know what? We're managing Homo sapiens, which are human beings, of course, and we are not machines. As much as we'd like to think of technology to help us, and I'll use a great example here, and when we get into one of these restaurants, just opened August 5th in Scottsdale, Arizona, new concept. It's a blast. And we went wireless with pads, the iPads. I did want to keep that up here, but that's all right. We went with the little pads. It's all wireless technology, and we have the ability to take the orders right then and there, and we teach and we send and stay, and we have a beverage runner, and while the server is still at the table, the beverages come to the table, and then we're here talking about appetizers. We think we've gotten ourselves off to a great start. So it's all about managing, winning, and being on point. I believe that, this is a philosophy I learned a long time ago, that most of the good business decisions that we make need to be logical if we can stay logical. And I think there's 10 basic business things, and we'll hit the first 5. We're in the business pretty much to increase sales. Unless you work for the government, you need to do these 5 things in order to sustain. You need to do those 5 things. You really have to always be on the hunt to increase sales. My coach would tell you it's the beat yesterday book. He's right. You look at it, see where you were a year ago, same time frame, last week, the month, and you were scared if it wasn't going up. And you're always scared. It's okay to play scared in this business. I want to remind you, it's okay to play scared. It makes you better. It makes you hungrier. It makes you want to go to that next level. I play scared. When I had the Nick and Willie's franchise system, and I would come in 6:30 in the morning and look at the numbers, it was all, you know, we had the technology, we were able to look, I'd pull them all up. It would scare the heck out of me when we hit June. Pizza's not great in June and July. People don't like a lot of pizza in July historically. And I would always sit there in May and say, I can't wait till August 10th. Because August 10th was when people stopped coming off vacation, started thinking of go about and getting back into their normal things. But I was scared from about Mother's Day till about early August. It's okay to play scared. Attracting new customers, that's what we hear. We have a turning industry. Well, I don't care what your brand is, and of course that's why loyalty programs are created for hotels and car rentals and certainly airlines, is to keep them coming back. In the restaurant business, it's tough. We have to always be looking for those first 5 things. And the cash flow. Cash flow is not the same as P&L. It's important, they're relative. P&L, cash flow, and balance sheet are relative, but they're 3 different things. 3 different things. And if you're not paying attention to that, that is the weak side. Here's a few more pieces. Attracting and retaining quality employees. When we are in a booming move where we start to see unemployment move towards 6 or under, it's a bear. When we have you all in here, you are the answer to our Achilles heel in this industry. Our Achilles heel is attracting and retaining quality managers and quality employees. And our government isn't helping us with our wait staff because January 1st, are you all aware? I hope you are. We can no longer cash tip out our employees off of their credit cards. That's gone. January 1. As a consultant, we're urging our clients to do it before January 1 so they don't have the shock value. Get off of it. Get them moved as soon as you can. How many of us waited tables? Come on, let me see all the wait staff people. Anybody declare 100% of their cash tips? Oh, bull. Oh, bull. I know better. I know better. Greg and Doug, you're not there, right? Fact is, this is a problem to our industry right now. One of the reasons we have always been able to attract good wait staff is because they actually could really make some decent cash. At this new restaurant I'm talking to you about, we have wait staff that clear 70 grand a year. 70,000 a year. We've got some pretty high-end wait staff. Our average ticket's well over 60, and the average is running around 19.3 as a percentage of sales is what their tips are. Want to get them over 20. Fact of the matter is, come January 1, this is going to be a problem. That piece that says attracting, retaining quality employees, I think is going to be a problem for our industry. Now, it's not that we haven't had a benefit for a long time of being able to do that, but it's going to be an issue. And for all of us that are managers or coming into management, it's something we're going to have to deal with. We're going to possibly see some of these extra high achievers start looking. I like number 7. You better seek the competitive advantages because there's a lot of competition out there. Differentiating yourself in your brand. I was very fortunate to attend our Eric's Club meeting this morning, and we were talking about the brand of the Conrad Hilton College of Hotel Restaurant Management and how we can set ourselves apart perhaps from other state programs in the state of Texas or across the country. It's that brand. Staying out of regulatory troubles, that could mean health department, paying your taxes, making sure your sales taxes, etc. And of course, one I always like because I came from the food service distribution business and supply chain, purchase your products from a reliable source of products and services. You can't believe how important that is, especially when you're 86ing stuff such as we experienced last evening. where we were at a very good restaurant. And we were there at 8:15, got sat at 9:15, and we had 6 or 7 items 86'd already. And then asked the manager, was this a busier than normal Wednesday night? And they said no, and I'm going, wow, somebody missed something. We did not throw the chef under the bus, but we started to. This is huge. We are in a for-profit industry. Profit is not a dirty word. It's something we should be proud of. Don't let anybody take your profits away. You should be proud of your profits. This is not a free industry. There are too many people that look at our business and our industry as saying that we are hoarding, we are bad, we get bad publicity. I'm going to talk about the National Restaurant Association, the TRA, etc. in a minute, because political action is not a spectator sport. Think about it. It's not a spectator sport. Still all right. Other critical management skills. This is the human side. Recognizing the emotional side of your customers and your employees. 1 out of 3 employees come to work with a problem in their brain. Something's going on at home around them. Maybe they can't make their mortgage, etc. You have to be able to address those emotional components and move them to as logical as possible. They're worthless if they're on the floor and something's going on in their life and they can't get it out of them. You either got to go get them into the mirror, got to chat with them. You can see it in their faces. And I would tell you this has been a big success for me in my leadership component and training over the years, is learning to recognize the facial expressions of your staff. Falling asleep, not being there, unaware, don't care, want to care. Use the testimonials to gain agreement. Tammy, Tony the other night came in here, didn't feel good, wasn't on point. Are you that way tonight because they only made 12% tips? Or are you ready to go? Can we get your happy face on? Because you're here for your guests and you're here for our company and our business, etc. Moving those testimonials across. Most people learn well off of either oral or visual, right? Not a lot of people learn, especially now that you're all basically adults. Most adult learners read and learn least, visual and verbal most. This is a skill. Gain agreements with your staff, gain agreements with your customers. You've all waited tables. Suggested selling is where this begins, right? Would you like to add on that, or save room for dessert, or are chopped salads the best, or can we add on some chicken or salmon? And it's going like this. May we add on some chicken or salmon? Sure, it's great. It's gaining agreements. It's walking through the restaurant. It's the howdy rounds, not just with your employees. It's the table touches. It's the greetings. We are all part of this hospitality industry. Failure can be a great teacher. And I did have a failure in my career not that long ago. It was Nick and Willie's. It did really, 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 really well. Then it did really, really not so well. And it was a great teacher for me. Learn, learn, and learn. We never stop learning, and we always will sit there and look back on our careers and say, what went right, what went wrong. But something that didn't go right should teach you something better about yourself and your skill sets. So we don't do it again. That was a big part of my life. Then you need a support system. Now, I happen to have the ultimate support system for over 34 years. Very lucky. I married my best friend. And we have another picture maybe. And there's another picture. Now, it's important that you have a balance in this industry. It's tough. You know, too many of us don't survive 6 years, 10 years, and you got to work at your career and you have to work on your life. Because in the end, it doesn't matter that you worked for X company for 20, 30, or 40 years or had this kind of career. In the end, it's about your life. And it's about your life. And my wife was going to come down here, but as I said, our daughter's due in 2 weeks with her first, and she just didn't feel good about it, and I would have been in trouble for life if Melissa goes into labor and Mary Ann's not there. So I also have a FiveStar Family, and that's me. And there's my FiveStar Family about 3 weeks ago at a 5-star resort. Anybody recognize where that might be? The Broadmoor. Thank you, Dr. Clinton. I appreciate it. That is my family. You can kind of see my daughter fourth from the right and my 2 grandchildren, and that's a picture a couple years ago. But I have a 5-star family. I'm very lucky, very fortunate, very blessed, but it's been a big part of my life, and it made it a part of my life. Even though you say I'll be home at 7:30, and it's usually 9 o'clock, we know that drill, don't we, Coach? It's the fact. Balance. You have to want it. This was an opening. I spent about 6 weeks in Scottsdale over the summer. It was delightful this summer. I was there for the 116.5 degree day in mid-July this year. It tied 116.7. It tied an all-time record for July in Arizona. It was delightful. And there is the balance of my life. I have to show that because that's my little princess. So, keeping up with great friends. Some of the people you meet here in this college will be your friends for life. My very dear friend over there, Charles David, with his wife Karen and mine. This was taken in February in New York when we were having dinner, and my Broncos got their butt spanked in the Super Bowl, but we were having a good time. There I am in my orange, and other great friends. Oh, this is we alluded to. This is where my summer home or winter second place is. That's what I get to see every morning when I wake up out there. That's above Telluride. This happens to be a picture this fall of our lake. It's called Trout Lake. There's 100 cabins around that 140 acres, and I'm very lucky and very fortunate. That's my refuge. I now, up here we didn't get internet, etc., but now because we have great internet and I get cell phone service up there, nobody knows where the heck I am. And then you have to have a pastime. This is my passion for pastime. Yes, I know. But I was there for when Peyton threw that the other day, and actually that's the picture right after they did it. And I do enjoy a few things, and Broncos happen to be one of them. And my longtime friends from here, this is a U of H graduate. His name is Father Tom Ponzini. He was the Gourmet Night general manager in 1977 for the 50th anniversary. But longtime friends stay connected. It's a good thing. There's a good friend who lives in Denver. His name is Sean Cleary. And of course my buddy Charles. And there's an old picture of Charles and me in our younger year. He said burn that picture too. But I think it's important. This is important. I have been called by people in Colorado and places I've lived as kind of the PhD of networking. My father was that profound influence. My father was in every association he could think of to network, to be a part of, to learn from. These are just some of them that I've done. They alluded to the New Mexico Restaurant Association on the bottom right, the CRA. The CRA, I've been on the board of the CRA twice, once in Colorado, once in California. I'm a past chairman of the board, I'm a key advocate for the National Restaurant Association. I believe in that. I believe in advocacy because our industry gets its lunch handed to us if we're not careful. But it's important to stay active in that. Get involved in our industry. As I said, it's not a spectator sport. This is something that I'm very proud of because if you'll see, I'm in Colorado, which food service growth, what state has the largest food service growth in terms of employment? Colorado. And that's a percentage-wise. Now, granted, we're only 4.2 million people in the Centennial State, but the fact of the matter is, and Texas is right up there, I think there's 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's important that the advocacy of your industry plays a role in that. It's critical. And your advocacy starts with your belief in your industry. It's not a blue or a red. That has nothing to do with it. It's about what's right for our industry, our customers, and our staff. And how we serve our community. Our industry's been picked on. Recently, in the press, we've had a major campaign saying that it's not okay to be flipping hamburgers, that it's an embarrassment, and that you should be making $18 an hour. Well, you know what? I have a client up on the North Dakota-Montana border in the oil country, and they're paying $16.50 for fast food workers because can't find anything. Our industry should not be governed. Supply and demand and basic economics should play the role. And if in Hawaii you have to pay $18 an hour, or in Glendive, Montana, I'm going to show you a picture of what we're doing up there, it's okay because it is a free market. Here's what I do. My current world. I'm about done. My current world, I work with lots of different concepts all over the country. Had a great one about a year ago that Charles and I got to meet in Newburgh, New York. And just as some of the brands. It's fun. I enjoy the heck out of this after being on a day-to-day basis tied into something. Consulting's pretty good, right, Marty? Not bad. And this is what I'm doing today. I've already talked about it. It's great to get back into operations. This is a drop-dead gorgeous restaurant, and they put out incredible food, and I'm enjoying it. But I get to do my howdy rounds every day. I got to see what the sales were for last night. Was on my phone this morning at 6 o'clock. Prime cost, sales, etc. Knowing the numbers. This is this 50s gas station in Glendive, Montana, that we're going to put roll-up doors, and I took this about 6 weeks ago. It's now well under construction, and we're making a pizza place out of this. It's a classic. A new Italian restaurant in Denver that we just did, finished it off. This was a 15-month project. It's a beautiful restaurant. Dorothy, it might have even been worthy of some of the designs, right? But it came out, it's a Tuscan look. So just push that one out. This is the one in Scottsdale. If you've ever been to a Benihana's or a Teppan-style Japanese restaurant, this is Mexican food done that way, everything in front. We have 7 stations there. It was about $400,000 worth of HVAC just to put that baby together. All stainless, it's gorgeous. Well, my career in summary. I'm not another Harlan Sanders. I mean, though he started KFC at my age. He did. He started in his late 50s, early 60s. I'm not. I wouldn't get another 10 years with my wife. That's right. I'm definitely not the next Peyton Manning. Though I've gotten to meet him a couple times. He's something else. Because Peyton has that same philosophy. I can and I am the best I can because I know and I can't. Can't doesn't work for Peyton. It doesn't work for me. I know everything. Heck no. I'm just learning. I'm just out of the box. I'm still learning. And only the best as I can be, that's what I need to be. I can only be the best. If it's to be, it's only up to me. If it's to be, it's up to me. And I believe that. And I own that. And I preach that. And I talk that. And I walk that. You walk the walk and talk the talk. Coach did and always does make the difference for me. And I will tell you, it's been my honor to be here tonight, this morning. I got it this morning. I finished up last night after we got back from dinner, and I looked at some numbers from Sushi Den. Of course, you know me, Charles. But I dedicate this to those 6. And Dean, you're over there. You're clearly a profound influence on this college. And you continue the traditions that Dean Taylor started. And to the Taylor family and Don Greenaway's family, Dr. Rappole, Don Greenaway, Dr. Keister, and he is looking straight at me, and the Dean, of course. But Coach, this is for you. I love you. And I will tell you, thank you all for your time.
We're not leaving yet.
Okay. Let me go stay over here.
Well, that was just...
Oh, I forgot one thing. Because of inflation, did you see what happened over here? He had to get off his ass to make a buck, but it's $5 now. Okay, I'm done.
No, you're not. You're not. Come over here. Thank you very much. That was just an awesome speech.
Thank you.
Hopefully, we all learned something. I certainly did. And I'll take some of that back with me.
Thanks, Marty.
You're my coach now. So.
Oh, no, but thank you.
No, thank you. And I know you have to go to class pretty soon, all of you here. I'd like to present a little
Beautiful.
award
Thank you.
for Richard for being our guest lecturer today.
Thank you.
So,
thanks, Marty. Thank you. Thank you.
Also, since you probably don't know this tradition, we're going to send you home with something else.
Okay.
Okay? And it's not the gorgeous blonde, by the way.
Oh, no, I have a gorgeous redhead at home, so it's all right.
I'd like to present you with a chair for your office.
Wow. Thank you.
For our distinguished Eric's Club guest lecturer. And we wish you all the best. And again, thank you for all coming, all of you.
Thank you.
And for all of the distinguished alumni that we have here is great.
Oh, sit. Feels great. Thank you. Thank you.
Ah, you look like
Thank you all. Thank you.
We have about 3 or 4, 5 minutes to still talk. If anybody has any questions?
Any questions? No questions? Oh, that's good. Nobody's got a question.
Come on, Dr.
Dr. Rapphole.
This is the elephant in the room.
Okay.
In Colorado.
Yes.
Have marijuana pizza.
Do we have marijuana in pizza? Like really, really, really good, man. I mean, I like it. Doug, does that sound like that's our 70s roll, right?
Why are you looking at me?
Because remember we were here in there, you know, the point is in Colorado actually we were having this I've had a couple people ask me that conversation, and quite honestly it hasn't been tested completely in the courts as far as how we deal with employees, and that's really probably the better process of all the HR, all the employee handbooks. We certainly updated them. It's still an illegal substance as far as the federal government's concerned. So as employers, we still are requiring our employees to not have it on their person. We have modified, if we have restaurants who do drug testing for accidents, that we've now put a TCP range in there based off of some guidelines the state has come up with. And so that's, you know, a little bit of an opportunity. Again, we haven't seen anybody terminated over that where it's hit the state appellate courts or even to the Colorado Supreme Court. Clearly, the Attorney General in the state of Colorado wants to keep an arm's length on that thing. They didn't want to deal with it. I mean, they're allowing local jurisdictions. As far as edibles, restaurants have not engaged actively in putting edibles into their system. They're allowing the dispensaries, if you would, to sell the edibles. Unfortunately, we've had a couple of issues with some of the dispensaries putting way too much in there. We've had, I believe, 1 death of it in the state since it went into effect in January. Just started legally January 1st. However, the good news is we've raised $90 million in taxes, of which 25 is for enforcement and governance. So we've got about a $65 million tax base gain. And of course, unintended consequences. There was lots of arguing and pushing and pulling about where the money goes. Originally it was going to the general fund, and then the legislature made sure it was going for what it was intended, which higher ed in the state of Colorado is the benefactor of that. So that's a great thing. That's a great thing. Higher ed. That was always the always there. And of course, it still remains to be seen. But you know, Washington D.C. passed it, Alaska passed it, Oregon passed it. I think you're going to continue to see it, though they didn't pass it in Florida. So yes, Greg.
As a consultant and to your clients, how are you managing their reaction to Obamacare?
Well, the ACA has clearly been an interesting piece. This restaurant that I'm currently the CEO, 220 employees is what they have, and clearly they are under the Obamacare 115.15, excuse me, 1.115, got it. They went ahead and made the move because they're clearly over the 50 FTE equivalent, and they went ahead and are offering it to their up to the threshold. They're offering they're offering it. As far as the ACA is concerned, the advice is a little bit of wait. One of it was this, let's see what happens this past Tuesday. I think the enforcement of that, or lack thereof, is going to be up in the air. The large, obviously the huge mega employers, the big corporations, they're having to address it because they're going to get watched on first. The independents that do $12 million a year are going to be second. A lot of the independent restaurants stay under the 50 FTE, but our advice at this point, you probably err on the side of compliance. It's generally best to err on the side of compliance and not put your own political agenda out there, because it's probably not worth the penalties. Penalties start getting steep in 16, not so much next year. But as individuals, the penalties are really supposed to start in 15. So we'll see. But it's a little interesting. Great question. Other questions? Any other questions? Yes, sir.
You made a point, and I think a vital one, on perspective most people here won't have. But when you are 65, or in my case 85, all of the things that were important to you become so less important. And you talked about your bride and how long you've been married. How do you see that relate to today?
Well, how it relates to today in my life, or to people, to everybody?
In their life.
I think you got to have a life. I mean, this industry will consume you. And I think it's an unhappiness. And part of life is, let's just be happy. If you're happy, there's an old Italian saying, the fishes stink up from the head of first. You ever heard that? Okay. I know who said that first. That's right. I know that's another coachism, but it's the truth. And if you're unhappy and you aren't wearing it yourself, and you're not walking, you can ruin the shift. You can ruin the day just by coming in there with a frown. So if it ain't going well at home, it ain't going to go well at the office or at the restaurant or the hotel or the club, because you'll wear it. And so I think that balance, and that's why I had probably 3 or 4 slides up there. It's been an important piece of that. And it doesn't mean whether you're male or female. You've got to have that balance. And whether you're attached, unattached, or just friends, you've got to check in with those friends. Their friends is your power base. Your family is your power base. It is. It's the base. It is an absolute base. It's that Maslow. It's that emotion. It's that fulfillment. I didn't get into Maslow's hierarchy, but if you haven't taken that, and I got that class from the, I'm sure that was out of the psychology department when we had to take a psych class here, but they taught the Maslow's theory, hierarchical theory of needs. And you need to understand that. I'm hitting that tomorrow in the intro class. So if you're in that class, I'm going to talk about Maslow, because your customers come into you on a Richter scale, your staff comes in there on a Richter scale, and so do you. And put a smile on, because we are in the people business. And the NRA said that for years. We're glad you're here. I mean, if you ever went to an NRA convention for years and years, it always said, we're glad you're here. Make sure people, that phone rings and they want a resi, or they're online, or they have questions, they walk in the door. It's my favorite sound, is watch that door open and greeting them. But best, did they leave as delighted as when they came in the door? Our job is to delight. Great question. Thanks, Coach. Anything else? I know we're out of time, Wendy. She's up. She's cutting me off, so I'm all over it.
Again, thanks very
Martin.
much.
Thank you.
Great job.
I'll take that for the plane ride home.
All right. Thank you all for coming.
Oh, I'm going to sit.